BC.
Yes.
And when you read something like that, outside of the dates and information, what do you glean from it?
Oh, in this case, I would say it's a soap opera story.
Yeah.
About the father of Alexander the Great,
Yeah.
Philip II of Macedon.
Uh-huh.
And Diodorus Siculus is a fairly unintelligent writer, more an encyclopedist.
Uh-huh.
But all of a sudden, when it comes to the father of Alexander the Great, he's brilliant and wild and unbelievable. Apparently, Diodorus Siculus had access to sources that others didn't have in antiquity.
Right. So he got the inside information.
Well, we never know exactly. Is it really inside information? How much is made up? How much is sort of slightly inclination into propaganda? You don't know.
Right. But what do you find is, I mean, when you think, because if even watching the new movie, that it seems that sometimes you really kind of focus on the sort of vulnerability of humans and their needs and desires and where that takes them. So when you look at something like a propagandist or somebody that's, perhaps, switching history around, what do you think creates that dynamic? Do you think he was working for the state, or do you think he was...
No. It's history is always a question of perception.
Uh-huh.
So whenever you read history, any kind of history, it is always perception.
Right.
There's always a tendency, unbeknownst or beknownst to the writer.
Right.
And you have to read the historical context, and you have to read the mood of the time, and you have to understand the argument within the context of the time.
Right.
So then it becomes fascinating.
Right. Because you have the whole world. You can look at the whole world of what's happening. You have the full context.
You will never have the full context. That's an illusion. But you can get snippets of it.
Well, when I was watching, lo and behold, the new documentary, it was not a good night for me. I enjoyed the movie, but I didn't sleep well. I had dreams of spiders for some reason. I don't know why, but I found myself terrified at the end of it, and that I should be doing something to that's the odd thing at the end of that film, is that, like, I should be doing something to protect what? There's no way out, really.
Yes, of course there is. Why are you so
negative?
Sounding so doomed. It's kind of weird.
Is it?
Yes, of course.
So,
and do I not show some of the glories of the internet, for example?
Oh, no, yeah, no, it's great.
So, yeah.
But what I found the most glorious was the passion of these scientists and these researchers, and even the security analysts, that the challenge of now managing the monster or the beautiful thing, however you want to look at it, is really going to be the humanity's work, is going to be managing this monster.
You see, the internet is not good or evil.
Right.
Nor is electricity.
Right.
It doesn't have qualities beyond the technical qualities.
Right.
Although if we strap you onto an electric chair and execute you, you better recalibrate your opinion a few minutes before we do that. so yeah.
Right. So in the hands of humans, this amazing force can go either way.
Yeah, well, humans are good or evil.
They are.
And much worse so, much of the time they are very stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a certain danger.
Stupid and evil are not mutually exclusive in any way. Like a lot of the very classic stupid evil people that have done great damage in their stupidity.
Sorry that I would like to tell you a dream, because
Please.
I hardly ever dream.
When did it happen?
Not long ago, but I dream maybe once in a year.
Really?
And I was running in a street in Mexico somehow, pursued by God knows what. And at an intersection, I bump into a donkey that has some sort of load packed on it, and I'm knocked down, and a priest picks me up and shakes me and screams at me, "Do you believe in the forces of evil? Do you renounce Satan himself?" And somehow, perplexed as I was, I said, "I do not believe in the devil. I only believe in stupidity." That was what I dreamt. So you better figure that one out.
Is that seems like a good short film. It's almost. Did you grow up with religion?
No,
not at all.
Well, I had a deeply religious phase in my adolescence, and I converted to Catholicism, which didn't last very long.
How old?
It was a very 13, 14.
What compelled you?
That's too complex to discuss it here, but it is a fact that I had a very intense, dramatic religious phase that in a way threatened to break the family apart, which was a family of militant atheists.
Huh. Yeah. Do when you look back on it, do you think maybe that was the reason you did it? Was to find independence?
No, I was independent since I started to think independently, even before that.
Yeah.
Because my brothers and I grew up in an environment where there were no fathers. So
because of the war?
Yes, we had to take care of ourselves. We had to shape our destiny. We understood it. We have to be self-reliant.
So what year was that? What year were you born?
1942, in the middle of the Second World War.
Oh my God!
And my very first reminiscences are connected to the very end of the war.
Like
very visually.
Like sounds and destruction.
Actually, no destruction. I didn't see destruction because my mother fled to the mountains, to the most remote valley in the Alps. Because where I was born, there was a carpet bombardment, and we were really in danger, so my mother fled.
Oh, that was good.
And I do remember, however, that she ripped my older brother and me out of our beds in the middle of the night and carried us, and it was cold, and she wrapped us into blankets, and she said, "Children, boys, I had to wake you up. You have to see this." And at the end of the valley, very far in the distance, the horizon was completely, in the middle of the night, dark night, the horizon was pulsing in red and orange, the entire horizon. And she says, "Boys, you have to see this. The city of Rosenheim is burning." And the city of Rosenheim, 30 miles away at least.
Was leveled?
Completely, yes. Like pretty much every major city in Germany. 720 cities were completely leveled, but leveled the way Ground Zero looked like.
Yeah.
And that was only a tiny fraction of New York City.
Yeah, and it just
and
rubbled.
Very few cities were not actually bombed by virtue of some statistical errors, I think.
Oh, really? You think they didn't need to be bombed, you mean?
No, they were forgotten maybe, or they didn't. Somebody was not keeping track of what had been destroyed and what was still out there.
Yeah. So your father died in the war?
No, he was in captivity, and then right after soon after the war, divorced.
Mm. When did you move back into a city?
When it was time to go to high school. That means age 11.
Uh-huh. And when you got back, which city did you go back to?
Munich, where I was born.
So it was, how long did it take for them to reconstruct that city? Was it
some
your
of
whole
it
life?
is still, some of it is still filling up. There are still gaps that are filling up. But I would say, basically, by the time of the Munich Olympics were held, 1972, they utilized some of the mountains that were built up as part of the Olympic landscape.
Yeah.
And these mountains were, gigantic amounts of cubic feet of, it was all rubble.
Really?
And it was flat, but now you do have, we call it Schuttberge, the debris mountains.
Right.
And now they're overgrown with grass and trees, and they look like very normal landscape, but archaeologists of the future in 1,000 years will dig into it, and they will find millions and millions of cubic feet, billions of cubic feet of rubble.
Rubble and pieces of history.
Whatever, yes.
So when you knew that, when did you start, thinking, creatively in terms of like wanting to pursue film or wanting to pursue a life of art?
That was the same time I converted to Catholicism. I started to travel on foot. I knew I was going to be a poet, a filmmaker, and
13.
14, I would say.
Yeah.
And then it was all in a very short span of time. And somehow I'm still carried by it until today.
By the purpose of it? By the...
No, accepting, recognizing my fate.
Uh-huh. That is what you are.
Yes,
filmmaker.
It sounds a little bit pathetic. You better touch this term, accepting or understanding your fate. You better touch it only with a pair of pliers. But I think you know what I mean.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Is that you understood what you are here to do?
Yes. Giving meaning to my life.
Yes.
In an otherwise meaningless and aimless universe.
Yeah. And so it's almost like it is saving your life on some level.
No, of course not.
Okay.
My life was given to me by some strange coincidence, statistically improbable, but I'm here. So I better had to figure out what to do with it.
But do you? I mean, because when I watch the documentaries and some of the feature films, they're challenging because they're amazingly human and they're completely compelling, but sometimes dark, obviously, and sometimes very. There's a vulnerability to them that is disturbing. Like if I think of Grizzly Man, and I watched Even Dwarf Started Small recently. That's
a wild one, a radical one.
It is, because it's a very challenging thing when you watch Even Dwarfs Were Small to not laugh a lot.
Of course, it has a very dark humor in it, very black humor. And many of my films, by the way, have a lot of humor in it.
Oh, no, yeah, definitely. I feel that. You have a great sense of timing and a great sense of where to cut. Sometimes you let things hang for a minute in the documentaries all the time.
Or even poking fun at the internet, in the use of the internet. In Lo and Behold, I show Buddhist monks
with the
next to at the skyline, and they're all tweeting. So, in my commentary, of course, makes it a very hilarious event.
Right? Yes,
and I know how to deal with the internet in a way. And strangely enough, my humor on the internet has quite often become viral. I was asked in a podcast for the first time when I showed Lo and Behold at Sundance, and became a phenomenal success there. And I was in a podcast, and I asked, but I have my laptop open, but I don't see you. And I was instructed, well, you don't see me like in a Skype conversation because this is a podcast.
Right.
It's only like radio. And I said, but how do I access? And they gave me an address.
Right.
You just type in this this keyword and then Google us. And now comes this.
Yeah.
Of course, my kind of joke.
Yeah.
I asked, how for heaven's sake do I hack into Google? They were screaming. And so I think you understand my type of humor.
No, I do. I've watched a lot of the movies, and I think that it sometimes it relieves a moment. There are moments in this that are humorous, but they're also powerful. You know, when you ask that guy if he loved his robot. I mean,
yes, and he does.
He does.
Robot 8.
He really loves Robot 8. They all love Robot 8.
Yeah.
It seems to be something that you explore, a lot. That we're vulnerable, and sometimes life, gets away from us in certain ways, and being human is fragile.
Yeah.
Right.
And yet. What they are doing is a monumental achievement of human ingenuity.
I know, but it's
with certain dangers, of course. But
right.
it is a very momentous kind of revolution, as momentous as, for example, the introduction of fire.
Yes.
For early humans.
Yes.
Or as the introduction of electricity. That's a huge thing.
Yes.
It's much bigger than, let's say, printing books,
yes.
Gutenberg Bible and so on.
Right.
From then, it's much bigger than all this. And it's bigger than the discovery of America by Columbus.
Yes.
You see, and that's why the logbook that you find at UCLA, which actually did the very first server-to-server connection between UCLA and Stanford. And the very first message that was sent across should be log in. But they spelled L. Has L arrived? They asked via telephone. Yes, yep, L has arrived. Has the O arrived? Yep, O has arrived. When they typed in G, the computer crashed.
So it's just low.
Low, yes. And it's, as Leonard Kleinrock, the pioneer, tells us, this was a very auspicious sort of label all of a sudden. Low, like in Lo and Behold.
Right.
And they had no clue how momentous that moment was. And he knows it was more momentous. This tiny little entry in their logbook had more significance than Columbus's logbook on the ship. This morning we spotted land.
Yes.
It's bigger than that.
I think it is, and I guess maybe because it's a good documentary, I'm bringing a lot of my own cynicism to everything that's being discussed. That I think that's what's compelling about a film like that, is that, like, I can't not think of darkness winning ultimately. Like, and when they talk about, like, when are we going to be able to walk?
Yeah, but you don't look like a guy. I mean, I see you. You sit opposite to me. You don't look like being driven by dark forces.
No.
I'm sure you love a good steak once in a while.
I had one the other night.
Okay, I read your face correctly.
Yes, I am occasionally a steak eater.
Yes. And your laughter isn't fiendish.
No. I think I'm speaking out of fear. I don't think I'm necessarily a dark guy, but when I hear these guys, the guy in the planetarium saying, like, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about a world where this thing goes wrong. I don't even want to entertain that thought right now.
We should.
Of course.
We should, of course, because we can take very easy precautions individually. For example, there's constant talk we should get rid of cash money, and we should introduce virtual reality, virtual currency like bitcoins, or we should only pay electronically.
Yeah.
No, because if the internet is down, you cannot buy your hamburger at the joint down at the corner.
No,
and you cannot flush your toilet anymore, and you cannot go in the elevator to the 70th floor in New York City, and you have no connectivity, you have no radio, no telephone, nothing.
Right.
So we better provide ourselves with at least a small stash of dollar bills, small denominations, because with $100 bill, you still can buy a hamburger, but they wouldn't have the change to give you back. So you better have $1 bills, $5, $10, $20 bills.
I know, but in the movie, it seems like, within 2 or 3 days, there's not going to be any hamburgers either.
That could actually be, yes.
No matter what you do to safeguard yourself, that within a week or two, it's going to be ugly.
Yes, but now on the technical level, let's try and find certain safeguards to reinstall things, or at least regionally, decentralize the entire system so that only certain parts are going to be affected, like with the electrical grid. If something is, some generator station is blasting away, you reroute your currency, and in a similar way you can do so with the internet. There's not much thought going into it. I'm sure that, for example, secret services are very much interested in that.
So when you make a film like that, you don't find yourself feeling bleak?
No, not at all. It's a phenomenal thing to look at it and to conceptualize and to see things that nobody has even predicted 15 years ago, and they're happening now.
Do you believe?
And they're changing our behavior, and they're changing our, let's say, at least the organization of technical civilizations.
Yes.
So the Amish couldn't care less.
Right.
But they have a very good survival rate if everything goes down, because they're self-reliant homestead farmers.
Yes.
And they don't even need electricity.
Right. But what about the rest of us?
We will have a harder time, and we better look at what we are doing. You can go out for hunting and foraging, but the park here in downtown Los Angeles is very small, and you've got about maybe 50 squirrels for 15 million people who live around there.
A few coyotes. You got to learn how to eat coyotes.
Yes, you have to eat the coyote, but they are not enough for 15 million.
Okay.
So that's a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem. But like I said, I thought it was a beautiful movie that weighed all this stuff pretty well. Yes, it is. It definitely
Damn
is.
It is.
Like what was being talked about at the end, which I sort of get obsessed about, is that, like at the beginning of this conversation, where we were talking about you taking an ancient Greek historian and putting it into context to fully understand the possibilities of the times that he is trying to talk about, and that one of the things that I've said before about the internet is that eventually you may have a generation of kids, if they're not there now, who will just say, like Adolf Hitler, oh, he's the guy with the mustache. And that's all they know. So in terms of contextualizing and honoring history and actually having, like they were talking about at the end, how do you continue to inspire kids or young people to engage your imagination and contextualize what has happened before them?
It has to come from them. I cannot play the principle.
No, I know
for
that.
all of us.
But you're
so be careful. No, and I do not think that young people will eventually ask the essential questions. Why are we here? What are we doing here? How do we conduct our lives? How do we touch each other? How do we cook for each other? How do we raise children?
You believe they will continue to ask those questions?
Yes, it's inevitable. Sure, we are humans. Let's face it.
But that
one, and it's a wild time of transition.
So that's how you see it. That we're in a transition.
Yes,
this is not.
We do not know how to deal with the instrument well enough. You see, in the 50s, there was this obsession of cars.
Yeah.
Elvis in his car, in this big Buick or whatever it was. and drive-in restaurants. And
Yeah.
you could do in Las Vegas still, I think you can do a drive-in wedding.
Yeah.
And I have seen a sign in Las Vegas not long ago where there was an advertisement, drive-by divorce.
Yeah.
You see, but
Yeah.
this kind of obsession with cars
Yes.
is a little bit outdated. And
Right.
we are rethinking our cars, and we are trying to have cars that have a much lower emission of gases,
Right.
of toxic gases, or
right.
we are moving into electric cars. So we have started to understand how to use this tool.
I get it. No, I understand.
And there's no drive-by divorce anymore.
Right. Yeah. No. It's you gotta do it the old-fashioned way. But all those technologies require human engagement on a very organic level. That now there are so many. And obviously you're not a scientist, but I mean I understand that we're adapting to a new world and a new technology.
Yeah.
But so much of it has nothing to do with us, in the sense of we don't know anything.
No, it all has to do with us. For example, GPS system
Yes.
has to do with fundamental insights into movement and time. Without the theory of relativity by Einstein, we could not have a GPS system.
That's right.
You see,
Yes.
and it's it is not visible for us, and it is not palpable, but we are doing it because we had Einstein.
Yes.
And when you pay your grocery at the cash register, you do not have to go into the mathematical principles that rule the cash register calculation
yeah.
machine. You don't need to do that.
Yes.
And yet,
Yeah.
it's a normal thing.
Yes.
You buy certain things and
Yes.
you pay a certain amount.
Yeah.
And it has been calculated.
Yeah.
How it was calculated is uninteresting now.
Yes, that's true. Okay.
It has disappeared.
Okay. I mean, I agree with you. I just get nervous when, you have the darker elements that you explore. I thought the security analyst guy was great, the one that was not able to give you a lot of information.
Yes.
But I thought that was very fascinating that, that even securing what is happening, from
Yeah.
another human being
Yes.
or maybe a group of human beings, you have to identify patterns. You have to live in this world.
Right.
Where patterns become suspect and then track patterns. I thought that was all, very fascinating.
It is, and of course, it comes right at the right time for discussion when everybody was into the thing of hacking,
Yeah.
the Democratic Convention
Sure.
emails.
Yes.
And there were machinations against Bernie
Yeah.
Sanders. And so, number one, it's not really clear whether it was any of the Russians who in the KGB or the modern form of the KGB would call himself Cozy Bear.
Yeah, yeah.
Nor has the NSA or the CIA ever confirmed it. They
Yeah.
keep ominously silent. At the same time, we should understand where the massive, monumental siphoning of knowledge, of technologies, of science, of details, secrets of manufacturings is taking place.
Yeah.
It's not an individual hacker. It's
Right.
not the
Yeah.
Russians. I mean, everybody does it.
Sure.
America certainly does it. But there's one player out there that siphons off trillions of dollars of worth, of values.
Yeah.
And they are still out there, and they are still doing it.
Yeah. So
You name the name.
I don't know the name.
I know it, and everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Name, horse, and rider. Just take a guess among the countries that is siphoning off
Trillions of dollars?
trillions of dollars. Take a guess.
China.
You pronounce it in a beautiful way. We do not exactly know, but we should assume. So you may have come to a smart conclusion and ask the professional hackers.
That guy was great in the movie.
Mitnick. Yes, Kevin Mitnick. I love him.
I love him too.
And of course, I was asked, why do you expose him in the film and give him a platform? Hasn't he done damage? Actually, he hasn't done real damage because he never sold any of the goodies that he hacked.
Yeah.
He never did it for profit. He did it for trophies.
I love that moment.
And besides, we have to consider this man has spent 5 years in federal prison, 1 year in complete isolation.
How old was he? Like 20? He looked very young.
At the time, he was very young. I mean, he was 19, and he was the most famous
hacker
and most wanted of all hackers.
He was made an example of.
And he has been brought to justice.
Yes.
And I do believe in rehabilitation of a criminal. And by the way, Mitnick today is running a security company that advises you how do you protect your company from intrusions and hacking and stealing and siphoning off. So he's good at that.
Yeah.
He's a very reliable businessman now.
And also the interesting thing in dealing with the human factor was just how much he knew had to do with his ability to coax information out of people on a human level to get into
There were always better hackers. I mean, technically, there were better ones. But he was the one who could bamboozle you out of your wits. And you would give away secrets that you would never give away. He has it in 11 minutes flat.
Yes.
In 11 minutes, he gets all the secret code of a new Motorola cell phone at the time.
That's an eternal human archetype, the smooth talker. Right?
Yeah, no, he has, and he says it very well. He does have the gift of gab.
Yeah.
I like this expression.
Now, when you it seems that your output of documentaries in the last decade or so has been a lot, and you make a lot of big feature films as well. What is more the passion? Is it just a different approach? Do you see them as equal?
No, there's a slightly different approach, although everything is movies for me.
Yeah.
And when you poke into the question, I can give you a statistical answer. At the moment, I have 4 finished films, all ready for release. On the 19th of August, it's Lo and Behold, Reveries of the Connected World. In Telluride, very first days of September, a new documentary on volcanoes. A few days later, a feature film, Salt and Fire, which I shot in Bolivia, about a mysterious hostage-taking. And I also have a big epic feature film out, which is called Queen of the Desert. So 2 feature films ready for release, 2 documentaries ready for release. And my next projects are basically all, at the moment, feature film projects. But it doesn't really matter. Don't start to count and don't go into statistics.
No, I was just wondering, like, in terms of your approach to them and what you can get out of them. Are the feature films, are they your scripts, both of them, or are you just...
Feature films, always my own scripts, with very rare exceptions.
So when like, just in the craft of doing both of them, what is the essential, thrill or search when you write a film and direct a film and you have complete control, or as opposed to when you are putting together footage of interactions?
But I also write, of course, a documentary, and I somehow stylize them and I stage them. Like, for example, the appearance of Buddhist monks at the skyline of Chicago and musing about have they all left for, the inhabitants, millions of inhabitants of Chicago, for a colony on Mars. Because it looks very lifeless. There's no movement, nothing around.
But were they just there, or did you put them there?
They were there, but no. By the way, if they had been just entering their bus, I would have asked them, please, can you step out for my camera once more, and please do the tweeting that you did before. So that's the nature of my kind of documentaries. I do it for enhancement of a deeper truth. Something that's quite beautiful out there, and something that connects us to poetry. I like to take audiences, and I'm speaking now of documentaries, I take them left and right, and I take them right into the landscape of sheer illumination and poetry.
Yeah, the
and
poetry.
You see, I claim the right of trespassing if I can take you, the audience, into the landscape of poetry.
Yes.
I do any form of trespassing easily. For example, at the end of my film Cave of Forgotten Dreams, which is a film about a Paleolithic cave recently discovered, with cave paintings of phenomenal beauty and quality, made something like 32,000 years ago. And there's a postscript, and the postscript is about mutant albino radioactive crocodiles. And I'm going completely wild, and the audiences love it. And it has to do, obviously, it is connected to the film loosely, it has to do with perception. How did humans, like us, there were Homo sapiens, how did they perceive their paintings? How do we today, in the 21st century, perceive these paintings? And how would a crocodile, an albino crocodile in a biotope nearby, near a nuclear reactor, how do they, when they escape and enter the cave, see these paintings? Right. And by the way, as crazy as it may sound, there's this biotope for tourists with hundreds of crocodiles. 5 of them escaped last winter. Or at the beginning of winter, there was a huge hunt with
for the crocodiles.
Huge hunt, including helicopters searching for them. Somehow, some of them were found in a harvested cornfield, in a frozen harvested cornfield, and one of them is still at large, unaccounted.
Unaccounted crocodile.
So my wildest fantasies are overtaken by something real.
Yeah, or it's prophetic. But like the poetry, like I read some of the book that you wrote in the early 70s of Walking on Ice.
Of Walking in Ice.
Yeah. And that was a fairly astounding poetic achievement. That just the way you were, engaging in the life that you were moving towards. It obviously was in the wake of an ill friend, but it was essentially poetry. Yes,
you see it correctly. It was born out of a certain necessity, not just sitting down in front of some empty paper and then starting to write poetry. I was traveling on foot at the beginning of winter from Munich to Paris because my mentor, an old woman, Lotte Eisner, was dying. And I wouldn't allow her to die by just coming on foot. She wouldn't die. Actually, she was out of hospital when I arrived. And I know that these written texts, like Of Walking in Ice and another book, which is very intense, it's called Conquest of the Useless. They will outlive my films.
Yeah? Why do you think that?
Because it's a more direct sort of expression. You only have a pen and paper in between you and what you are in your essence.
Yes.
In filmmaking, there's always finances and organization and technical things, camera and mixing and psychology of actors, and you just name it. So there are many layers in between.
Yeah.
And besides, I think there's no one who writes prose as I do today.
No, I think
there's no one.
True.
And I say that probably in complete misjudgment. But so be it.
Why don't you do more of it?
I'm asking myself the same question, and some of my best friends tell me so. But I have too many things going on. As I said, I'm producing very fast nowadays, and I do things that I haven't done so much before. I'm acting, for example. Including as a real villain in Jack Reacher.
Yeah. Do you like it?
Yes, because I was good.
Yeah.
I was really good in it, and I was paid handsomely to be as frightening as it gets. And man, am I frightening.
But you did you always, I mean, you took a long time to act, having been working with actors forever.
It comes easily to me now.
Now,
because,
right?
Yeah, sure.
Why? Because you're not as self-conscious, or?
No, I think it was always in me in a way, and I always understood actors on a very deep level until I actually understood much of the technical side. There's craft.
Yeah.
There's craft in it.
Sure.
And you can see it when I recently published Masterclass. There's a company that does masterclasses, and I watched just to see how the format functioned. I watched two actors, Dustin Hoffman and Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
And Dustin Hoffman, more than anyone, speaks about craft.
Yes.
And very, very interesting.
Yes.
He's really good at explaining it.
Yeah.
And
so you learned from him?
No, because I saw it only very recently, and I did all my acting before I had seen.
Yeah.
But very interesting.
Now I want to watch it.
It's worthwhile because it is more densely packed than any of the other masterclasses that are available out there.
But with or without craft, having worked, for years with Kinski, who you were close with, and many other different actors, do you agree that some people just have a natural thing for it, right? I mean, there are some people that just belong in that profession.
Yeah. But you should not forget that Kinski was, in a way, extremely into rehearsing in his early times.
Yes.
He would improve his pronunciation, his speech, his stage voice, his ductus of language.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he was fanatically rehearsing.
Yeah.
And he always denied it. No, I'm a genius fallen out of the skies, and nobody has ever been like this before. And he would, when you told him, Klaus, you were wonderful, you were great, he would scream, "No, I was not wonderful. I was not great. I was monumental. I was epochal." So that's his answer. And do not forget, for example, great icons in acting like Marilyn Monroe.
Yes.
It looks, when you look at Some Like It Hot, as if it came with complete ease. And she, when you look at her professional life, was fanatically rehearsing and training herself.
Yes.
She was a workhorse of great intensity.
And she worked with the method, right?
Forget about the method. She only was declined after she was with the method.
Yes.
And Marlon Brando only declined after he had been with the method. So I would see it only with great amount of doubt.
Right.
But she was a real workhorse. It's a little bit like when you watch Olympics and you see the swimmers.
Yeah.
I mean, they swim with great grace.
Yes.
And fluidity.
Yes.
And at the same time, it's 10 years of training, each day swimming at least 10 kilometers in training.
Yes.
Not a single day without 10 kilometers.
Right. You got to put the work in.
Yes.
Well, in Salt and Fire, you work with Michael Shannon, who I like a lot.
Oh, he's the best of his generation.
Yeah. You like
clearly the best. There's no one like him.
Yeah.
I love the man.
Is it with him? Do you see the work?
I see somebody of extraordinary gift and an extraordinary presence. You see presence on screen. In a way, it is inexplicable. There's something mysterious about it.
Mm-hmm. Because not everybody has it, obviously. Some people just fit.
Some sort of charisma.
Yeah.
It comes from somewhere else, and we cannot even name it.
Yes. And that fits into the poetry.
Yes.
So when you talk about Lottie Eisner, right?
Yes.
this was the early 70s, and you call her your mentor. So what did you learn from her early on that sort of guided you through your first films and whatnot?
No, it's not that she taught me anything.
Okay.
However, she put me in context with the silent movies of the Weimar epoch, Murnau, Fritz Lang, then later it was her encouragement.
Right.
The encouragement from my first film on. She said, there's somebody out there who is extraordinary in her opinion, and she was in very close contact with Fritz Lang, who lived in Hollywood at that time.
Yes.
And she wrote letters to him, and she said, Fritz, you have always said, after the barbarism of the Third Reich, of the Nazis, there cannot be real, legitimate, great German cinema again. Never, ever. And she said to him, Fritz, you know what? I send you a print of a film by a young kid who made a film, Signs of Life, his first feature film. And she sent him the print. And Fritz Lang saw it, and he said, Lotte, you are right. Yes, there's something coming. Yeah. So it was encouragement.
That's an amazing
Because at the
thing.
time, nobody wanted to see my films, including Agary, the Wrath of God. Nobody wanted to see the film.
Why?
I cannot explain it. I don't know why.
Do you think
Sometimes it happens. It took 3, 4, 5 years until the film all of a sudden had its breakthrough.
And do you think that was because of Germany, or do you think it was because of you?
No, the film was such a novelty in its raw approach, and it was not at the horizon of anyone. And sometimes it's very strange how these things happen. I keep thinking about Franz Kafka, of the novel The Castle. I think during his lifetime 32 copies were sold.
Right.
And we know that at least he himself, out of embarrassment, bought 10 copies himself.
Right.
So you never know.
Now, at the time, was there a community? Like, are you friends with Wim Wenders and Fassbinder? Were you
Not really friends. We respected each other very deeply.
Yeah.
But we knew our styles were different, our subjects were different.
Yeah.
Not like neorealism in Italy after the war, where there was a common style and common social sort of agenda in their movies.
But but it was considered a movement in a way, right? Or was it considered German new cinema? Or
yeah, let's not argue whether it was a movement.
No.
Some sort of a renaissance.
But you were around each other. You were in the same world.
Yes, but
different.
And we understood we would be perceived as a movement, which none of us liked.
Sure, right. Did you like their movies?
Not all of them, but yes, sure. There are very, very fine movies from that time. And you know, when I did Agary, the Wrath of God, I took 8 prints, 35mm prints. They are ugly to carry and heavy. I took them to Peru. Yeah. And I rented a theater and I showed them for free. Yeah. And it was phenomenal success. So many people were excited about them. 3 of the films were films by Fassbinder, for example. And Fassbinder even didn't know that I took them. And only a year and a half later he said, well, Werner, what is that? You came to my office and you saw 3 prints sitting there in the corner and you were the one who took them. You were the one, confess. I said, Rainer Werner, yes, I confess, I took them, I showed them. And you know what? He just came at me with his intimidating look and then he stretched his arms and hugged me very hard. And that was it.
Oh, that's great.
So
he was,
You took them. Yes, of course I took them because they were very, very fine movies and they had to be shown.
Which movies?
I don't really recall, but one was, I think, his second film he made, Katzelmacher. A very, very interesting film.
Well, we began to talk about Even Dwarf Started Small, which was, you said darkly funny, which it was, just right away.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to look for something in that film that was a portal into something that lasted your entire creative vision. Do you see that in that movie? Do you see the beginning of something that you've continued to try to resolve or incorporate?
No, I don't have a real agenda. However, I know that I do have a coherent worldview.
Yeah.
And this film, lo and behold,
yes,
is essentially somehow within my worldview and within my curiosities to expand my worldview.
Yes.
And when you see the film, you would, without having any credits, you would notice very quickly this is a film by me.
Of course, as soon as you hear you talk. and
even if it were only in written captions, you would get the message.
But I guess what I saw was that by using dwarves and by using little people, that there was a built-in vulnerability to what was essentially a fairly harrowing story.
They do not appear as midgets or as dwarfs in the film because the entire world is only little people.
Right.
Whereas the Cadillac that drives by, or the motorcycle, or the chairs,
yes,
or the nuptial bed,
yes,
are of size for us, but all of a sudden all these daily tools of everyday life become like monsters.
Yes.
All of a sudden all these goodies become monstrous.
Right. So that's that kind of moves through.
They are the regular size. All the chair, the motorcycle, everything looks like a monster all of a sudden.
Right. And when you did the volcano, when you went up to the first volcano movie, you're releasing another volcano movie?
Well, I'm just finishing a film, Into the Inferno.
Yes.
Which will be shown in 3 weeks from now.
And what was the one that I watched?
Telluride. La Soufrière, about a film about a volcano that was about to explode.
Oh, yeah.
In the Caribbean.
Right.
And I went there because I was fascinated by learning that there were very, very dramatic, quick evacuations of the entire island.
Yeah.
75,000 people. And one single poor farmer who lived at the slope of the volcano refused to be evacuated.
The guy with the cat.
Yes, yeah. And we had to wake him up while we started filming. And deeply philosophical, a very poor black farmer who lived on the slope of the volcano. And we knew it would explode with the force of 6, 7, 8 atomic bombs, Hiroshima size.
But so, you knew you might be there for that too.
In a way, yes, but I was somehow prudent. No, that was the only 1 or 2 times in my films, in my working life, I took some sort of blind lottery. Otherwise, I'm a very, very prudent, safety, security-oriented person.
Yeah.
And I can read the difficulties and I can read the dangers.
Yes.
Very, very well, better than others. However, the moment we were done filming, we would flee.
Yeah.
As fast and as far as we could. And we went up on the volcano a second time, but only because of a bizarre coincidence. One of the 2 cinematographers, Ed Lockman, a wonderful, great cinematographer in the industry, he lost his glasses.
Right.
Up on the volcano.
Yeah.
And I said, Edward, you are so helpless down there and we can't get you any glasses. You know what? I'm gonna return up there and I'm finding them. And I said, give me your camera. And he said, no, I'll come with you. And Schmidt-Reitwein, the other cinematographer, also came along. And once we had reached the summit, it was completely changed. It was plowed over and a fissure had opened miles deep and toxic gases protruding from it. So there was no way to find his glasses. But we kept on filming for a while and then fled again.
And I got to ask you a couple questions before I specific ones before I forget them. In Grizzly Man, which was primarily assembling, right?
Half the film is shot by me.
Right, and then that's 50%. Right. And then you had a lot of his stuff.
Timothy Treadwell's footage, yes.
There's a beat in there that I think changed like that to me was one of the best moments in film for me. Because and I think you must have been aware of it, of course you were, but there was that moment where you sort of discuss how these animals they don't have personalities per se, that they're wild animals.
Not anthropomorphic.
Right, that was
sort
it.
of
and then quickly
qualities, and not the Disney World qualities.
That's right.
As being fluffy little creatures.
Right.
That you can cuddle and sing a song to them.
Yeah, and then there was at some point, I think shortly after, where you cut to the face of the bear that probably killed him.
Yes.
And it was impossible as a viewer not to project evil. That because you had established that, you can't, and you knew it. I knew it logically. You can't anthropomorphize. But when I did see that bear's face, my brain could not. It wrestled with it. I'm like,
But do not forget my commentary. In all the faces of all bears that I encountered, I do not see any sympathy. I do not see any. I don't remember exactly. There's only the monumental indifference. Maybe the only interest is interest in food.
Yeah. Yeah.
No affinity, no affection.
Right.
No hostility.
Right.
It's just monumental indifference.
Yeah.
And that's what you see in the face of the bear. I put it in the right context.
You did, yes. I want to talk about the PSA that you did, because that documentary is brutal. The texting and driving.
Yes.
I don't know how I think that's a great little film.
It is. I have no doubt, and I can quantify it. Millions of people saw it on YouTube.
Yes.
And it's way too long for YouTube. YouTube is made for the 60 seconds cat videos, crazy cats.
Yeah.
Or anything that's over 8 minutes long is prohibitive.
Yeah.
And here millions and millions saw it, and it has triggered legislation in various states of the United States. And it is being shown now on 40,000 high schools across the United States. And I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it has become a mandatory viewing for those kids who do that driving test, driving license in high school. And many, of course, do it like that.
So that could be.
And it has had an enormous effect. And people tell me you must have saved many, many lives. Instinctively, I know, yes, I did, but you cannot quantify it. You can quantify only events. You see, you can quantify accidents. You can quantify fatalities, but you cannot quantify events that did not take place.
Right.
You cannot quantify how many times did you miss the woman of your life because she left the plaza 60 seconds before you arrived. So you cannot quantify it. Right. However, there's an indirect way to see the effect, and that's the statistical curve that has altered its direction, coinciding with the release of this YouTube video.
It's interesting because on some level, the way you talk about it, it could be one of the most important films you've ever made.
It depends on what you call important. In practical terms, yes.
Okay.
In practical effect, yes.
Yeah. Do you ever think of your films in that way?
No.
No,
but in this case, I knew there was a clear goal.
Right.
And let's perform as good as I can. And I would do a public, how do you call it, service announcement?
Yeah, public service announcement.
But with all the intensity and all the craft that I can muster. You see, I do not give lectures or little charity. When I give myself.
Yes.
And you know who said that? It was Walt Whitman who said that once.
Yeah.
And I have adopted it.
What inspires you, and this will be the end of it, to make a documentary? I mean, how does it, Grizzly Man or this Lo and Behold or the one about the monks as well? I mean, how do you find the topics? Where does it come?
Very often they stumble into me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have never been like somebody who plans a career And after I'm finishing a film, I'm looking at the New York Times best-selling list of novels. That one I should make into a movie. It never has happened like this. Very often films have found me. Many times they come as uninvited guests, like the burglars at night. But since I'm a storyteller, I would instantly know this is big. This is so big, I have to do it.
Yeah.
And it happened exactly like that with Grizzly Man, for example.
Do you miss film? Like actual film?
Celluloid. Now I'm not nostalgic. I love it.
Yeah.
Of course I love it.
Yeah.
But digital filmmaking has allowed me to work faster.
Yeah.
And to work less expensively.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why all of a sudden I'm coming out with 4 films, all of them ready for distribution. The system of distribution is too slow for my output.
Right. What did you lose with celluloid? What do you lose?
Well, the kind of magic of the flicker of 24 frames in a theater.
Yeah.
And celluloid, you always have to understand it as a layer, a 3-dimensional thin layer of emulsion that stores your information, whereas a digital film is only a file of zeros and ones.
Right. And
there's a strange, we sense that there's a different life to it.
Right. And also I imagine that the editing process is a bit more decisive.
When you are in celluloid, you better come to some conclusions quickly. And what I see today, digital editing, there are directors who don't know what they are doing, and they create 22 parallel versions and never can decide.
Yeah.
But I'm editing almost as fast as I'm thinking.
So that you can only do on digital.
Because I do not have to search for the small reel of film and look for making some pen marks on it and glue it, splice it together and feed it into a system and roll it to the right moment. So I'm editing much, much, much faster now.
Closer to writing.
Closer to writing in a way, yes.
Now, just in terms of film, I know that you were close with Roger Ebert, and that what was once a fairly sort of there are a few champions of the cultural and artistic importance of film. Do you feel that it still has the proper place in the world of art? Do you feel that that film is still being reckoned with in the proper way, culturally and critically?
When he was afflicted by illness, and he could not speak anymore, he would use the internet and a laptop for creating his voice. It was digitally configured, and it was his voice that would answer to you. So the glory of the internet. At the same time, he said to me, Werner, watch out, there's something, I will die soon. You better be vigilant and watch out, and you have to be a guardian. Read. And I said, Roger, of course I read, and I keep postulating, read, but I mean books. And at the same time, he kept saying, kids, young kids, should go out and dig a hole in the ground. Period. And I find it beautiful. God bless his soul.
That's
Roger
beautiful.
Ebert.
That's a nice closer. Thank you, Werner.
Thank you.